Good morning. This is Jeff Nichols with Laser Systems. We're pleased to present PlacePoint-IT with the PlacePoint team in Calgary, Alberta. I know you're in listen-only mode right now, but I want to just give you a little bit of framework around the demonstration today. This is designed specifically for IT departments to help them be a better team, be better collaborating, and be more efficient. And we're pleased to have partnered with NeoStream PlacePoint, and the solution is used worldwide and really makes the deployment of SharePoint much easier and specific to IT departments. And we hope you enjoy it. It should be about a 45-minute presentation, and we'll let Sean Halliday, president of PlacePoint, start it off. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Jeff. I'm looking forward to taking everyone through the PlacePoint IT solution. Like Jeff said, I'll start with a quick PowerPoint, not a ton of slides, but something to contextualize our approach to some of the challenges that are out there in IT departments for collaborating and information management. Then we'll do a demo because it's always fun to see the software, and we'll certainly answer the questions at the end. But if you do have any questions along the way, this great GoToMeeting device has a question box that you can just fill in your questions, and we'll read them out at the end and certainly endeavor to answer them. So without further ado, here we go. Just to set the stage, what we've found as we've spoken with organizations across North America, across the world, is that the digital transformation to the modern office critically depends on IT, the IT department, for success. Without you folks, this isn't going to happen, and more businesses on a daily basis rely on IT to advance them. Now, what we know about most IT teams is that they're overwhelmed. They're underfunded, often understaffed, and the projects are piling up. There's so much to do from a maintenance and sustainment mode as well as an advancement mode. It's like there's two streams going on at the same time. We also know that IT work, project work, is often not visible to the organization, or even visible at all times to all the different team members. And so there can be a lot of isolated work and isolated challenges going on. And then lastly, and we see this all the time, it is often our IT friends that understand the value of digital collaboration, document management, business intelligence, and mobility. You're reading the articles, attending the seminars, and certainly doing the deep thinking about how to move your business forward. But it's not always that you can make the enterprise decision to just go into these team and document management solutions. And so how can we move forward with that obstacle in front of us? Just to align our language a little bit, I want to give an example of what we mean when we speak about digital collaboration. It's certainly more than co-authoring a document together, although that's one thing, and it's certainly more than texting each other back and forth. The way that we paint the picture is we say, let's picture a room. We can call it a war room or a conference room or any sort of space where we're going to center all of the activities, data, documents, and people associated with that important project or important client or important event or asset. Now, in that room, in that site, we're going to start to bring in things like goals and priorities to make these things visible, the timelines so that we actually see where our milestones are and where we are versus them, the discussion board and the ability to communicate in an open forum for everyone who's involved in that project or client. Task and issue lists, request lists can keep a nice running total of what we're thinking about and what we have to do. Of course, the team members, who they are, what role they're playing, how we contact them, and frankly, what they're allowed to do within this site. The project details tell us about our project, but we also inherit that information to every document that we put on the site so that we have great metadata behind it. Financial summaries may come from direct integrations to line of business systems, or frankly, a project manager entering some spend and budget data. The activity timers help us monitor our calendar and keep our activities in alignment as a team. And then, of course, the document collection that we assemble. And so digital collaboration, by our view, is this working place where activities and data and documents are all collected for people to work on and communicate with. And so with that vision, we go forward and create a solution that we call PlacePoint-IT. Now, the first component of PlacePoint-IT is an actual IT team site. This would be private to the IT team, and it's where they can collaborate and manage team documents. We also have 3 other places that the IT team can work. Now, they can manage vendor information, project information, and asset information. And of course, there's a very tight interrelationship between the 3. The concept and all these little sites started to appear is because we're going to create a site for every vendor, a site for every project, and a site for every asset. And we have a central control mechanism to govern this creation and make consistency across all of these sites, but you still have the unique information that's provided within each by client, by project, by asset. So PlacePoint out of the box, we always think about an enterprise-based solution. So at some point, we want to be able to acknowledge that we can grow up and manage other aspects of the business. Right now, of course, we're focusing in on the IT aspects, but just to make sure that you hear it, there's always a bigger picture behind should you wish to expand to it. So PlacePoint-IT, this is what the interface starts out like, the landing page, and we'll demo this. We've got our team sites, our project sites, our asset sites, and our vendor sites. Just to speak a bit about the use case, because I get asked all the time, okay, this sounds conceptually interesting. What do we put on each site? So let's talk a little bit about that. From the team perspective, it's certainly at the start a communication device. We can post our priorities and our projects and our key performance indicators and the results that we're achieving. So this can be a hub for our IT team to see the scorecard of what's important and how we're doing against that. Of course, we can align our team calendar. And when we look at the kinds of documents that go into a system, a team site like this, it's usually the generic content that form policies, templates, best practices, and forms. So we're not yet being specific about a certain project or vendor or asset, but we're providing the tools to the team to start out with the right templates and the right business practices. And then, of course, this is a gem of a place. If you hire a new IT member, you welcome them into that team site and say, start reading those discussions, seeing what our priorities are, seeing what our active projects are. But now when we actually enter into the project area, we're going to have a site for every project that we're doing. So we're upgrading certain databases, we're expanding certain hardware, we're replacing certain phones. These are projects. And so we have the ability here to align all the team members on those project objectives. They can communicate and collaborate on how the project's going and certainly track their progress. So this is very project-centric now. There are specific tasks and specific issues being posted. The project calendar lets everyone see the timeline, the milestones, and even the recurring meetings and rhythms that they've established to make sure this project gets through to completion. From a document management perspective, the kind of information you'll find here is the specific project information, like the project charter, status reports, risk registries, and any other project-specific documentation based on whatever your methodologies are. And I do point out that this project may very likely be connected to some assets that we've either recently purchased or are redeploying, and the vendors that are providing those services and products. And so we can interrelate them here on this project site so we can quickly toggle between them. And I'll look forward to showing you that. Now, when we get into the asset sites, here's where we see warranty information and even timelines like reminders that 90 days from now our warranty runs out. Do we have any claims that we need to make? We'll see user information, who's using what and where's the technical documentation. We can track asset locations and licensing information. How many licenses do we have? How have they been deployed? The support and maintenance contracts, but also contacts and processes. So we may have an asset issue that we haven't thought about. We haven't thought about this asset for 19 months, but all of a sudden an issue pops up. We can quickly go there and realize who do we contact, what's our process, and what's our coverage. Photographs, video, and other schematics become part of this collection so that we can track where and what things are. And then again, just as we look at some of the other kinds of documents, I've certainly named a few, but this is where we could find purchase agreements and special terms related to that asset. Instruction manuals would be another one. And then again, that interrelationship of connecting the asset to the vendor site from whom we bought the asset, and the project site for which we use to deploy the asset, so we can interrelate these. And then lastly, on the vendor side, so now we're tracking our master agreements and price lists, any terms that we've specially negotiated. This could be a great place to put the invoices that arrive from that vendor. Also other key terms, documentation, payment terms, what have you. You might also look at your vendor status. We've had many more companies than one tell us that simply being able to click whether this is a preferred vendor or a secondary vendor helps them align their purchasing power throughout the organization. We can certainly track all of the contacts of how we pay this vendor, who we contact for support, for sales, for extra licenses, those sorts of things. Significant dates, whether it's offers that are expiring or key buy terms or other expiries, can be tagged and flagged here. And then I mentioned before, connecting to the assets that those vendors provided and the projects that were implemented to deploy our assets. We're also seeing the odd company use this as a vendor portal for exchanging either large documents or documents that are frequently changing. They'll permission in the specific vendor to a specific folder, not the whole site, but actually now have an extranet portal that the vendor can interface with, perhaps for new bids and things like that. So the pricing philosophy around this, recognizing that many IT budgets are already taxed and over deployed, is we needed this to be simple, fast to get up and running, predictable, no cost overruns, no budget and time overruns. And then ultimately, is there a way that through the success of what we're doing in the IT area, that we can help the business become more confident in areas like HR, finance, legal, sales, and marketing to start using similar tools and ultimately deploy towards an enterprise cohesive vision. So ultimately, this is a subscription model. It includes, right out of the box, we put 5 user licenses, the support. We host this as a software as a service in the Microsoft cloud and provide 50 gigs of active storage to start. And then, of course, we take care of this environment, updating both the core server and software infrastructure, as well as PlacePoint-IT itself. We've kept the setup services very fast and light, and we include some training in it. My next slide speaks to some of that training, because I often get asked, well, what do you mean training? Is there a lot to learn here? And it's really not. Our design goals were that if you can buy a pair of shoes on the internet or have a Facebook conversation with your grandmother, then you have enough technical skill to interface with this system day one. So we teach people how to search for content, of course, how to add new content in, how to edit the documents, how to favorite them so you can personally follow the most relevant documents to you, how to share them through links sending versus sending around emails and filling up more Exchange servers and inboxes, how to post comments, and how to enter events. These 7 simple skills equip you to be highly functional with PlacePoint-IT day one. We've embedded videos that teach you how to do these skills if you didn't learn them through the initial training session. Perhaps someone new's come on board. But that initial training session usually covers everything you need to know and more. I mentioned that we're hosting this in Microsoft Azure, a US-based data center that's geo-redundant. We've got a 21 cycle backup, so you can never be more than 59 minutes and 59 seconds out of coverage. And we're including all of the hosting services behind this. So the infrastructure architects to take care of and monitor the environment, to upgrade it, to test new patches and releases, whether they're browser, database, SharePoint, Windows operating system based. And so, as I said, we're performing all the services, and you stay connected to the internet, and you're good to go. So with that, I'll jump into a PlacePoint-IT demonstration. And again, just a reminder, if any questions are popping up, we look forward to taking those at the end. What I'm going to do here is go into my Internet Explorer browser. Probably worth mentioning, this does run on the Google Chrome browser, Microsoft Edge, Safari, and that's courtesy of our friends at Microsoft who have made SharePoint run on all of those browsers. So right now we're on the home page or landing page of PlacePoint-IT. This is where you would land each time you enter the environment. We've discussed that we have teams, projects, assets, and vendors. And so let's begin the journey with our team site. I sometimes refer to this as a clubhouse. This is where the IT team gets together to discuss and talk about its work. So just very briefly, I'll make this slightly larger for everyone to see. We mentioned that priorities, now these could be monthly priorities, quarterly, annual priorities, but it keeps visible what the department is actually trying to achieve from a strategic perspective. And obviously, we've all learned in the IT world that the closer we align our strategy with the corporate strategy, the better we all do, and the easier it is to obtain funding. And so we make this visible to our team. These are all of the projects that we have going on in our IT team right now. Of course, you guessed it, behind each one of these links is an entire project site. We'll get there in a moment, either through this project's link or directly clicking here. The discussions are a great way to recruit information and involve the team in a collaborative manner on topics that you want to discuss. Now, just a word of caution, this is not direct text messaging to each other. This is more a forum for discussions, for asking questions, and as people come and go from the site, they would actually be able to comment and reply to these discussions or questions. We can set up alerts to send messaging to people's email, should they wish for that to happen. We're finding over time, as the maturity of this use happens, people decline to have their email inbox full of these sorts of things. But suffice it to say, we don't want to actually enter time critical, I need an answer in the next 35 seconds. You don't put that on your discussion board. That's called the telephone or text messaging. As we scroll down here, we've got some links to our other line of business systems and places where we go, either out on the web or internally. So this is just a nice portal place where we can click on our other things. Very easy to enter new links. You simply click here, click add, and off you go. You enter the name, you enter the web address. And you'll find that as a consistent pattern through all. Anytime you're entering new information, you simply click on the add or on those discussions and things, and you can just start adding. That calendar, team events and things like that. So here you see we have a holiday party coming. We have a monthly team building event. And so as team members join this team, these now start to appear in their calendars too, as they have the ability to see the events that are part of the team that they're part of. Here's the actual team members working specifically in this site. Of course, the list can be much longer. And for any of those who are using Skype for Business or Microsoft Teams, we can actually light up their presence. And of course, here you can have the direct text messaging conversations. You can share desktops, have video calls, telephone calls, send emails, those sorts of things. So we have that direct connectivity through the Microsoft Toolkit. Now I want to tell you about the document section. We put this document panel on every page that we produce. And there's 3 sections to it. The first is the suggested documents. So these are documents that we want to feature for our team to quickly see. A disaster recovery plan is a great example of that. We don't want people hunting around in folders if this is ever called to action. It might also be documents that are just commonly accessed, and we're just tired of people saying, where's the laptop standards? Where's the laptop standards? So we can quickly post these here. Our folder section is where the documents from the site actually live. Now, we only go one folder deep. We're big fans of a very flat taxonomy so that people are not left to wonder which subfolder should I put things in. That's far too confusing, and we've already created that problem in our shared drive. So one folder, and then we are at the document level, and we'll use metadata or tags like document type, enterprise keywords, document descriptions, and we certainly could enter other metadata tags if it was required. But ultimately, this is how we find our content. If I wanted to actually favorite a document or follow it, I simply click on the three-dot ellipsis, click on follow, and now when I go back to my IT team site, you're going to see the third section of the document panel, which is the documents I'm following. This is my personalization section. So instead of saving these documents to my desktop because I'm frequently accessing them and lose control of version and security and audit trails, I can simply put that follow document, and now in this little web part over here, I've got all the documents I'm looking for. If I'm done with this document, perhaps my role or project has changed, I simply unclick it, and when I refresh this page, this document will be gone. Not gone from the repository, it still lives in here, but gone from my view of it in my favorite section. So that's the IT team site, and it's the place where we can all align the general work that we're doing, and now we can go into the specific project work. I'm going to actually go into our project link here instead of directly from that one of those sites. So what we have here is a list of the 4 IT projects that we have underway today. Now, we expect and often see over time, this can become dozens, hundreds, maybe not on the project side, but on the asset side, thousands of sites. So the way that we organize it is we use this grid. Now I can easily search. I can type in place if I was looking for a PlacePoint project, and it's going to filter down this whole thing. And we found a PlacePoint project and a replace field laptops. So that's a quick way to get to our sites. We can also organize our sites and use filters. You know, if I wanted to see all of my on hold projects, I simply filter down, and there it is. My Salesforce update project is on hold. But ultimately, what we're looking to do is get into one of these sites and deliver our project work. So when I clicked on our PlacePoint deployment project, we see a manifestation of the Project Central template designed around our PlacePoint deployment. Now, we've got a timeline where we can enter particular deliverables. We've got our budget, scope, and schedule that you saw on the team site identified in our KPIs. The discussion thread is the exact same as one we've covered. This project details web part's really an exciting one for us document management fans out there. We've got a bunch of information about what kind of project we're working on here. And we also know we're on a particular project site. When we drag and drop a document into any one of these folders, we inherit all of that project detail information automatically. So you'll never enter the project name, the project number, and any other specific details about this project that we have in this project details section. You'll never enter that again. Users like that because and governance people like that. On the governance side, we've got a great metadata taxonomy being enforced where we're capturing 5, 10, 20 pieces of metadata for every document that goes in. That's going to really drive our search, our reporting, our integration, our automation, our security, and our retention. But the users don't have to mess with that. When they drag and drop a document in, they get a pop-up that says, what's the document type? What's the date? And is there anything else you want to tell us about this document in free-form text? The rest of that happens behind the scenes. The business case is a way to create high visibility around why we're doing this project. And again, I reinforce that the better we can do as IT people to stay aligned with the business objective, strategy, and discipline from a corporate value perspective, the better we're going to do as IT people. And so ultimately, this is a great reminder for us of what is the value proposition? What are the stakeholders getting out of this? How are we measuring success? It's great to keep that highly visible. As we get through here, I've mentioned in the past that we can keep lists. So lists of issues, lists of requests, lists of tasks. You'll notice we can assign these to people. We can register whether they've started or not. We can track percentage complete. We can have predecessors for our tasks. And ultimately, this becomes a great way to manage our project. I'll admit, usually people use these tasks at more kind of milestone stage gate kind of things. They're not necessarily listing every mouse click that's required to deliver a project, but it's certainly possible. Here's the people that are working on the team here to deliver this project, and we can work through what roles are helpful to each specific project. You just actually manually enter the name of the role and then assign a person to it. And then this related section is pretty powerful. So right now we're on a PlacePoint deployment project site. We have an asset called PlacePoint, and we have a vendor called PrintAudit who is providing PlacePoint to us. So we can toggle between the asset site and the vendor site as required to get our project done. I'll show that in a minute. The key dates, as we've discussed in the past, can now help people get these dates into their calendars, as well as keep visibility on that. We're seeing that photographs and video are ever increasing in their importance, and even around IT project delivery, it's not uncommon to see pictures of server environments or the way that wires were dragged through a wall, like whatever it is. We're seeing a lot of pictures come into play. And then we're back to our document panel. The only change we made here is instead of recommending or suggesting documents, we found that in project-based work, it's often more helpful to have a list of the most recent documents entered into the system. And so this is a scrolling ticker tape of this was the most recent, this was the second most recent, and so on. So if you've been gone for a few days and you're checking back in with the project, this would be a real easy way to see what's been added, what's going on in the project. Of course, you'll have your own documents that you're following, perhaps a project plan or project charter if you're a leader of the project, and then you can go in deeper and find your documents. So that's an example of the project site. But before we get off of this, I want to set up a new project site. So we've just come out of a meeting and we've decided to deploy the new XYZ software or investigate the new XYZ software. I have the ability, maybe not everyone will, but a lot could, to create a new project site. And so I'm going to be presented with a real easy form to fill out about my project. So this is the XYZ software project deployment. Don't worry, I won't fill out the entire form. That can be a long process, but I do want to show you some of the capabilities here. So we've defined our stages of the project already, and so there's our choice. I'll make all of these statuses red so we can see it. Maybe I'll give it a budget. We think we're going to spend 123 hours. I haven't done any change orders. I'm going to assign this to the information management team or information technology team, and so on. You can see what I would be filling out here. I'm not going to fill out the business case or the milestones at this point just to keep us moving along, but I am going to assign some people to the project. And this is going to help again with our governance as to we've already predetermined that a project manager can read, write, and delete everything. But perhaps the quality assurance person can only get into a testing folder or some other aspect. So we can security control who can do what on each site. Lisa's one of our best project managers. Let's get her in the game. Let's have me sponsor this project, and let's have my buddy Ian be one of our technical resources. At this point, I could, I will. I'll relate this project to one of our vendors, and just to keep it real simple, I'll use PrintAudit. And I'm going to bring up my related assets. So let's relate this to the print audit vendor site. I type in print, there's my guy. Okay, when I hit save, we have an empty Project Central site sitting in the background waiting for this data to hit it. It's kind of like a bat catcher's mitt, wide open, waiting for the ball to come. So we've actually generated 10 empty sites in the background. It takes about 30 to 45 seconds for this content to hit it. I'll point out there's another way that content can hit our sites. We can do a line of business integration. So you add a new vendor into your accounting system, we can spin up a new vendor in Vendor Central. You add a new client or product in an asset management system, we can spin up a new asset site. Now, the project is ready. I'm given the option to go to the project, and so I'm quickly going to do that. And here we have our XYZ software project deployment. It's been automatically assigned a project number. You'll remember I didn't fill out any milestones, but I did give it some KPIs. But generally, this is an empty site. Now, who's happy about this? Our IT, governance, records people are happy because we have great infrastructure and governance. We're tracking the data properly. We've got a proper document taxonomy wired here and a proper security model here. But all of the general users are happy because they didn't need to raise a purchase order and engage in a bunch of requirements analysis. It took 30 to 45 seconds to get a new site, and they can begin working. Everyone who's in this team has now received an email with a link to this site saying, welcome to the XYZ software project. Have at her. Click on the link and off you go. But you can see again, generally this site is empty. We haven't populated any of this content yet, but we're ready to start managing this project. And we can see our cross-reference linked to the vendor print audit. So now we're having some fun. We've got a great team that's coordinated and aligned. We're managing our projects. You're going to see the patterns continue now as we get into assets and vendors. The asset grid has, of course, a different way of sorting and filtering all of our assets, but the same model actually applies here of a list where each asset has its own unique site. I'll just jump into the QNAP NAS asset site, and you can see a different manifestation. This doesn't look like Project Central. There's no milestones and timelines. There's no business case. This is about hardcore management of some asset details. So this is all of the stuff that we're inheriting against every document we put here. But we also have a bunch of license information. What did we pay for this? What's our maintenance and renewal? Which server does this live on? And then we've even had some discussions over time about some of the disks replaced and issues that we've had, and we're concerned about the service technicians that are coming along with this vendor, and we've asked them for some golf prizes. We've got some key dates we're associating with this asset. Here's the people that are most affected by it. Either they're overseeing it, sponsoring it, or power using it. We've related it to the vendor we purchased this from. Here's some pictures of the actual asset, and you can see we have our hardware warranties and network diagrams and what have you. And so everything to do with this asset's here. Now this site may sit dormant for 16 months until something happens with the asset, whether we need to buy a new one, renew it, repair it, warranty it, those sorts of things. But we have great information about that. And lastly, as we get into Vendor Central, you can almost guess how this story is going to go. We have a vendor list where we have a whole bunch of vendor details. I just wanted to show you that I can sort out all my vendors by industry, by business unit. And we have now in the architecture and design industry vendors, we have our marketing and communications business unit is using one of these vendors. I click on that, and here's my Frontier Plumbing and Heating. So just, again, different ways that we can sort and filter all of this information, because we do expect over time there's going to be hundreds and thousands of assets and vendors, and maybe even projects. So if I wanted to go into one of my vendor sites, again, a different manifestation of that core template. So now we've got a bunch of vendor information. Who are these people? Where are they? Who's our main contact? What is our relationship? What are they providing? Here's the accounting details of who we pay and how we bill, some tasks that need to get done. We've related this to our XYZ software deployment project, as well as a few other things. Here's who's managing this vendor relationship. And again, what we're seeing in organizations large and small, this is very key information, because it's not unusual to have hundreds and thousands of vendors from which you do not touch and interface with every day. And so how do we keep track of this so that we're professional and organized when we need to? Key dates are another aspect of that. And so ultimately, that's the solution. That's PlacePoint-IT, used for managing our team, our vendors, our projects, and our assets. Documentation, yes, but also enabling collaboration, whether it's through dates, date alignment, milestone alignment, discussions. This might be a good time to turn it over and see if there's any other questions, and I'd be happy to take them now.
Good morning, everyone. And yes, Sean, we do have a few questions. The first one is, and it's a long one, so bear with me. For when you open up to questions, I'm wondering if we can link this to our help desk ticketing systems on our intranet, essentially including a link to our particular help desk ticket that involves into an actual project. Also, what are the reporting capabilities with regards to projects? I'm thinking executive level summary versus full-blown project detail.
Okay, so let's take the linking question first, and you know, here's the answer is yes, we can absolutely link with that. Now, I don't know your your help desk software, and so, you know, I'm loath to sound like a salesperson that just says yes to everything, but there's different opportunities that we have. So I'll show you a few ways that we might approach a scenario like that. So the first one is actually to create a list here. Now, if we wanted to do a more complex integration, meaning there's actual data swapping between systems, we could do scheduled. SharePoint offers a tool called the Business Connectivity Service, and ultimately it's a codeless way to map data fields and bring them back into to SharePoint, PlacePoint in a list. And so one way we might do it is have a nightly or an hourly or an every 5-minute data exchange, whereby the IT system is putting out certain records with particular information, including perhaps a unique URL kind of link. And then ultimately we could populate a list that might be called support tickets, and then you would have the name of the ticket, a link to it, and maybe some supporting information. So that's the most complex way. Another way, though, is you could literally have a list where someone just added a ticket and copied in the URL link or some way of connecting back to your line of business help desk system. So there's a few different ways to do it. Some are more manual, some are more automated, and then even within each of those, you'll start to ask questions about the frequency needed and how to approach that. We could certainly talk more about that, but why don't I leave the answer at that for now? The quick answer is yes. The more detailed answer is kind of depends on how we want to do it and how much integration we want to have. The reporting one's a great one. So one of the things that we learned early in our days of working with SharePoint is that writing reports in SharePoint can be pretty painful. You know, you can get it done the first time, but then reports always change, and so people want to modify this and blow up certain aspects of a different report. So through that lesson, what we learned is the best thing for us to do is export our content into a SQL Server reporting services database every night. And so what we do is we export site data, list data, document metadata, and ultimately load all of that into a SQL database. Now from that, we can produce reports. And we have a number of clients whereby we actually just point a Power BI tool at it, and they can do their own reporting with that data set. Others, and frankly more commonly, since you mentioned the executive reporting, what we'll do is have a weekly report automatically generated, converted to PDF, and emailed out to the executive on a time schedule. And that can be super effective. We've had requests now to do that in Excel format, so that even those executives can start pivoting and working with the data in ways that they would like. We can do graphs, we can do pie charts, we can do all those tools. Surprisingly, Excel continues to be a really good tool and interface to point against those data sets. So again, quick answer is yes, we've done a lot of it, whether it's on demand, please generate a report this minute, or scheduled, and then the formats and the tools that the viewers wish to work with can be varied from as powerful as a Power BI toolkit all the way through to a PDF that just gives it to them. So I hope that answers your question. Happy to pick up more detail as if you've got some specific use cases you wanted to go through.
Great, thank you, Sean. We have a few more questions. If we start with PlacePoint-IT and we want to grow and expand to other modules, how does that happen?
Oh yeah, well it happens, and in fact it's even part of our thinking is that we're happy if you just subscribe to PlacePoint-IT and one is done, but it's certainly most of our discussions say let's start here and build on success and usage of it. So there's really two approaches. We are in the process of coming out with PlacePoint HR, PlacePoint Sales, PlacePoint Marketing, PlacePoint Legal, and you can imagine that all of these are simply an assembly. I'm just going to go back to my PowerPoint for a second here. They are an assembly of, let me just present this, of the various sites and centrals that we've pre-built into the enterprise solution. So a very small example, PlacePoint accounting or finance would look like a finance team site, vendors, projects again, and maybe assets. So you can build it like the Tinker Toy set where you're actually adding sites and little modules that way and connecting them through. Because I want to say this more than once, underneath the underpinnings of all of this is a true enterprise architecture from a taxonomy perspective, a governance and security perspective, and even a navigation connectivity perspective. So that's one way to do it. The second way to do it is you start with PlacePoint-IT and you decide this is now tilted the scales. Our executive and sponsorship teams are ready to go with an enterprise-based solution. At that point, we can switch gears and actually start approaching the organization team by team, site by site, with the vision that we're probably putting in more of an intranet-based solution now. So it's not just a link to a line of business SaaS service, it's now a corporate intranet where the social side of the business, the cultural side is also being lifted, where we share in birthdays and babies and sales successes together. So again, to repeat, you can modularly add on and they'll click together like nice Lego, or you can opt to take an enterprise view and really go more after a corporate intranet that involves all of the tools and components that we've been talking about today.
Thank you, Sean. Next question is, does this work on mobile devices?
Oh yeah, it does in a number of ways actually. So the first way is that these are responsive design pages, and so if you are accessing PlacePoint-IT through a mobile phone browser, you're able to see this. The navigation will adjust, all the web parts basically they stack, and you have visibility there. The second way, and again compliments to our friends at Microsoft, they've developed a lot of apps, one of them being a SharePoint app that we can point at these lists, document libraries and sites. And so there's multiple tools, even third-party apps that point at SharePoint, whether it's for business intelligence-based reporting or communication like a Teams-based app. So lots of mobile tools that are developed outside of our product suite, but then the responsive design also takes care of that. And then the last piece I'll mention, just to pile on here, is we've built an offline tool allowing people to take sites, basically take the site lists and the site documents offline, whether you're going onto a plane or going out into the field where there's no coverage. It works on a Windows device only, so it's not an app that runs on an iPhone. It's a Windows-driven tool. And what's great about it is if you take all the documents offline and then start to modify them, when you're back in connectivity range, the documents will upload. They'll version if necessary. If they're new, they'll upload originally. And that also works for any forms that you might be filling out, which is a particularly nice use case for those who are mobile workers driving around or visiting different sites. They can be filling out their forms, whether they're service orders or product orders or just even reports. They can do that offline, and then when they're back in connectivity, they plug in and the lists will populate, the documents will populate, and off you go. We call that product the courier, being kind of a mobile tool.
Great, thank you, Sean. Another question. What if we have more than 5 people in our IT department? Will this still work?
Oh yeah. So good question. I'm glad you asked that. So we include 5 licenses to start in the initial package, but you can just buy licenses per user, and you can activate them or turn them off. You know, if your department's in a state of flux, we only bill for the active users that are activated, I guess you'd say. And so, you know, if someone was going on a sabbatical for 2 months, we can deactivate them, still keep them in the system, still keep their audit trail history, but we wouldn't charge for them. So ultimately, yes, you can add more users. And I might as well mention at this stage, you can certainly add more storage if the initial offering of 50 gigabytes is not enough. We just add more storage.
Thank you, Sean. We have one more question. Can this integrate with Office 365?
Absolutely, and it's very likely that it will. Now we can do that in a couple ways. One is that through Office 365, you can save documents into any web-based location. They even make it so you can save to the Dropboxes and other systems in the world. So certainly, being SharePoint-based, we're one of those systems. But you can integrate it tighter by federating through an ADFS connection, and now you're actually single sign on to the environment, and that just creates a tighter search experience, a tighter user engagement experience, where now you've got some of the features in Office 365 like Delve that are tracking your site access, your document access, and ultimately, so we're one of those visible tools within the Office 365 suite. And then lastly, I do want to say, related to that, is if you then want to start doing flow, like workflows, or building some of that Power BI stuff against this repository, that's a great way to do it. And so you've got PlacePoint sitting here, managing your content, enabling collaboration, and then you can start some of that business process automation. You can create forms in the Office 365 suite and use those other tools. You can even, if you're using Microsoft Teams, you can present a PlacePoint site within your team. So again, it could be your IT team site in Microsoft Teams, or you could actually bring up certain projects, vendors, or assets depending on your use case. So we've been continuing to advance our integration and connectivity to Office 365, given again that we're a Microsoft-based solution. Is that it for questions, Angie?
That is all we have for today.
Okay. Well, I really want to thank everyone for joining us on this this presentation demonstration. Obviously, if you have any questions, follow up with us, whether it's to do custom demos and presentations, to give pricing, or to just answer more questions. We'd be happy to do so. And so with that, I'll sign off and wish everyone a great day.